The Vorthok transport ship disappeared into the red sky of Zarian Prime. Nari watched until it was just a speck against the burning horizon. Then she turned back to the canyon where her friends had died. She walked slowly between the bodies. Park, Juno, Lihana Choi Minho, Song Dahan, good soldiers, good people, they had followed her into this death trap and paid the ultimate price, but their deaths would not be meaningless. The message was already spreading. Nari activated her emergency beacon. The signal would reach the nearest human outpost in a few hours. Rescue ships would come eventually, but she was not worried about waiting. She had survived worse things than a night in the desert. She found a comfortable spot between two rocks and sat down to tend her wounds. The bleeding had stopped, but she needed to clean and bandage everything properly. Human bodies were tough, but they still needed care as she worked. She thought about what would happen next. The two surviving Vortheks would return to their fleet. They would file their report. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. But the evidence would be undeniable. 5 dead Vorthoks. 1 missing transport. Something had happened on Zarian Prime. Something that changed everything. The story would spread through the Vorthok military like wildfire. Each telling would make it more dramatic. The human who came back from the dead. The predator who hunted. In the desert, the female who refused to die. Some would call it propaganda. What other surprises were waiting? Nari finished bandaging her wounds and checked her equipment. Her rifle was damaged, but still functional. Her sidearm had 3 bullets left, but humans were adaptable. She would survive until help arrived. Hours passed. The red sun set behind the canyon walls. Heard the sound of engines in the distance. Human engines, not alien ones. The rescue ships had arrived. 3 military transports landed near the canyon. What they found was something else entirely. Captain Kim Nari sitting calmly beside her fallen comrades. Her wounds were bandaged, her weapons were clean, and scattered around the canyon were 5 dead Vorthoks. "Captain," the rescue team leader called out. "What happened here?" "We walked into an ambush," Nari replied simply. "They killed my team. They thought they killed me too. They were wrong." The soldiers looked at the alien bodies with amazement. Vortheks were tough enemies, well-trained and well-equipped. How had one injured human killed so many? Her body was stiff from sitting in the cold. But her eyes were bright and focused. Because they had a message to deliver, she said, "The Vorthok Empire needs to understand what they are dealing with. They think humans are prey. They think we are easy targets." She gestured toward the dead aliens. Now they know better. The dead Vortheks would be studied. Their weapons and equipment would be analyzed. Every piece of information would be used to fight back more effectively. But the real victory was not the dead aliens or captured technology. The real victory was the message that was already spreading across the galaxy. Humans could fight back. Humans could win. She kept it simple and factual. No drama, no exaggeration. Just the truth of what had happened. But she knew that the truth was dramatic enough. A human team ambushed and apparently wiped out. 1 survivor who refused to die. 5 alien soldiers killed in revenge. 2 survivors sent home to spread the word. The report would be copied and distributed throughout the human military. Know that Captain Kim Nari had shown the galaxy what humans were really capable of. They would know that the species everyone dismissed as weak mammals was actually something much more dangerous, apex predators who had been hiding their true nature. For too long, 3 months later, the effects of that message were clear. Human recruitment was up 300%. Volunteers were flooding into military bases across human space. Young people who had never thought about fighting were suddenly eager to serve. They claimed it was exaggerated. They said their soldiers had been caught off guard. They insisted that humans were still inferior, but their actions told a different story. Vorthok fleets started avoiding human colonies. Their attack patterns became more cautious, not as victims, but as a species that had been underestimated for far too long. And in a small military hospital on Terra Prime, Captain Kim Nari recovered from her wounds. She received medals and commendations. She was promoted and offered her choice of assignments. But what she remembered most was not the praise or recognition. It was the moment when she opened her eyes in the desert sand and decided that death was not an option. The moment when she reminded the galaxy that humans were not prey, they were predators, and they were done hiding. The week after Hannah's victory in the combat exercise, strange things began to happen. Small things at first, things that could be explained away as accidents or bad luck. Hannah's training weapon malfunctioned during target practice. Instead of firing straight, the energy bolts curved wildly to the left. She missed every target and scored 0 points. The weapon technician, a floating Kaleri named Vex, examined the weapon and shrugged. "Equipment failure," Vex said. "These things happen. Sometimes." But Hannah noticed the slight smile on Vex's face as he said it. 2 days later, June's combat armor failed during a training exercise. The power system shut down completely, leaving him unable to move in the heavy suit. He had to be carried off the training field by other cadets. The Sored cadets laughed as they helped him. "Human technology is so weak," one of them said loudly. "Maybe you should go back to your home planet, where things are easier." The armored technician could not find anything wrong with the suit. "Must have been a random system error," she said. The human cadets began to notice a pattern. Their equipment failed more often than anyone else's. Their food tasted strange, like someone had added bitter chemicals to it. Their training schedules were changed without notice, making them late for important sessions. Commander Veltar seemed to enjoy their struggles. When human cadets performed poorly because of equipment failures, he would shake his large head sadly. "This is why emotional species struggle in military service," he would say. "They cannot handle pressure. They make excuses instead of adapting to challenges." But the worst part was not the sabotage. It was the isolation. Other cadets stopped talking. To humans, completely. In the dining hall, empty seats appeared around the human table like a disease zone. In classes, alien cadets would move their chairs away if a human sat nearby. Hannah tried to ignore it, but she could see the effect on her fellow humans. Some of the younger cadets looked scared. Others seemed angry all the time. A few had even started talking about quitting the academy. "We cannot let them break us," Hannah told June one evening as they walked through the quiet corridors. "That is exactly what they want." "I know," June said, "but it is getting harder to stay positive. Today, my training rifle exploded in my hands during the shooting exercise. If the safety systems had not worked, I could have been seriously hurt." Hannah stopped walking. "Your rifle exploded?" "The power cell overloaded," June explained. "The weapons master said it was a manufacturing defect. But Hannah, I checked that rifle myself before the exercise. Everything was working perfectly." They continued walking in silence. Both of them were thinking the same thing, but neither wanted to say it out loud. The equipment failures were not accidents. Someone was deliberately sabotaging human gear. The next morning brought an announcement that changed everything. "Commander." Veltar called all cadets to the main assembly hall. The huge room was filled with different species, each group sitting in their own section. The humans occupied just 2 rows near the back. "Cadets," Veltar began, his deep voice echoing off the metal walls. "Your training period is coming to an end. In 2 weeks, you will face your final assessment." Excited murmurs filled the hall. The final assessment was the most important test at the academy. Cadets who passed would become officers in the galactic military. Those who failed would be sent home in shame. "This year's assessment will be special," Veltar continued. "You will be tested in the lower decks of this station, the old training areas that have not been used for years." Hannah frowned. She had heard about the lower decks. They were a maze of abandoned corridors and empty rooms deep in the station. Most cadets never went there because the areas were considered dangerous. "Each species will select their 2 best cadets," Veltar announced. "These teams will compete against each other in a combat simulation. The team that completes the mission first will bring honor to their entire species." The hall erupted. In excited chatter, this was more than just a test. It was a competition between the different alien races. "The human team will be chosen by combat trials tomorrow," Veltar said, looking directly at the human section. "May the strongest represent their species." After the assembly, the human cadets gathered in their common area. Everyone was talking, at once excited and nervous about the trials. "It has to be Hannah and June. They are our best fighters." "I agree," said Cadet Sun Choi, one of the few female cadets. "They work together better than anyone else here." But Hannah was not thinking about the trials. She was thinking about the timing. Why now? Why were they being sent to the dangerous lower decks just when the sabotage was getting worse. That night, she could not sleep. She got up and walked through the quiet corridors of the station. Most cadets were asleep, but she needed to think as she passed. Through the alien sections, she heard voices coming from a storage room. The door was slightly open, and light spilled out into the corridor. Hannah moved closer and listened. "The final assessment is perfect," a voice said. It sounded like Cadet Nix, the Vorthan leader. "The lower decks are isolated. No security cameras, no witnesses." "What about the weapons?" another voice asked. "This one belonged to a Saurid cadet." "Already taken care of," Nix replied. "The training weapons will be modified. They will look normal, but they will not be set to training mode." Hannah felt her blood turn cold. Training weapons were designed to cause pain, but not serious injury. If they were modified to full power, they could kill. "The humans are becoming too confident," Nix continued. "They think they belong here. This assessment will show everyone what happens when inferior species try to compete with their betters." "What if someone discovers what we have done?" the Saurid asked. "Who would believe it?" Nix laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "The weapons will be reset after the assessment. It will look like an accident, a malfunction. These things happen in dangerous training exercises." Hannah backed away from the door carefully. Her heart was pounding so hard she was afraid they might hear it. She had to get back to the human quarters and warn the others. But as she turned to leave, her foot hit a loose metal panel. The sound echoed through the corridor like a gunshot. The voices in the room stopped immediately. "What was that?" the Saurid asked. "Check the corridor," Nix ordered. Hannah ran. She sprinted through the corridors as quietly as she could, taking turns at random to confuse anyone who might be following her. Behind her, she could hear footsteps and alien voices. Searching for the source of the noise, she made it back to the human quarters without being caught. But she knew she had been close. Too close. The next morning, Hannah found June in the dining hall. She sat down next to him and spoke in a low voice. "We need to talk," she said privately. They found an empty training room, and Hannah told him everything she had heard. June's face grew serious as she spoke. "We have to report this," he said when she finished. "Report it to who?" Hannah asked. "Commander Veltaire. He already thinks we are weak and emotional. He will say we are making excuses, trying to avoid the assessment. Then what do we do?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment. "We prepare," she finally said. "We train harder than we ever have before, and we watch each other's backs." That afternoon, the combat trials began. One by one, human cadets faced off against each other in mock battles. The contests were fair and honorable, unlike the sabotage they had been facing. When it was over, Hannah and June had been selected as the human team. No one was surprised. They were the best fighters and the closest partners. But as they accepted congratulations from their fellow humans, Hannah noticed the alien cadets watching from across the training ground. Nix was there, his crystal body reflecting the light in sharp, angry patterns. Other aliens stood with him, cadets from different species united in their hatred of the humans. They were all smiling. Commander Veltar approached the human team with official papers. "Congratulations," he said, though his voice held no warmth. "You will represent your species in the final assessment. I hope you are prepared for the challenge." "We are ready," Hannah said firmly. "Good," Veltar replied, "because the lower decks can be very dangerous. Accidents happen there, equipment fails. Sometimes cadets do not come back." He walked away, leaving Hannah and June standing alone. "He knows," June said quietly. "Yes," Hannah agreed. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" That night, as they prepared for the assessment, both humans knew they were walking into a trap. But they also knew they had no choice. If they refused to participate, it would confirm every negative thing the aliens believed about humans. They had to go into the lower decks. They had to face whatever was waiting for them, but they would not go unprepared. The final assessment was in 3 days. 3 days to get ready for what might be their last mission. The morning of the final assessment arrived cold and dark. Station Kepler 7 dimmed its lights during night cycle, and the lower decks remained in shadow even during day hours. Hannah Kim stood in the equipment room, checking her gear one last time. The training weapon felt heavier than usual in her hands. She examined it carefully, looking for any signs of modification. The energy cell looked normal. The firing mechanism seemed standard, but she remembered Nix's words about the weapons being changed. "Everything looks right on mine, too," June Park said quietly beside her. He was running his fingers along his weapon, checking every surface. But that does not mean anything. Other teams were preparing in the same room. The Vorthen team consisted of Nix and another crystal being named Rax. Their bodies reflected the dim light like sharp diamonds. The Saurid team was led by Gorth, a massive reptilian cadet with scars on his green scales. The Kaleri team floated near the ceiling, their tentacles moving in nervous patterns. Commander Veltar entered the room with heavy footsteps. "Teams, gather around," he ordered. "I will explain the mission." The tall, Saurid commander, Hannah noticed that the alien teams stayed far from the humans. Even now, just before the assessment, they treated her and June like they carried some kind of disease. Began, "Your mission is simple. Navigate the maze and reach the central chamber. There you will find a victory beacon. The first team to activate the beacon wins the assessment." He gestured toward a large screen that showed a rough map of the lower decks. The maze looked complex, with dozens of corridors and rooms, were marked as dangerous or unstable. "The maze has multiple levels," Veltar continued. "Some passages lead up, others down. Dead ends are common. You must use your intelligence and teamwork to find the correct path." A Kaleri cadet raised one tentacle. "What about the weapons, Commander? Are they set to training mode?" "Of course," Veltar replied. "This is a training exercise. All weapons are configured for non-lethal energy bursts. However, be warned, the lower decks are old and unstable. Real dangers exist there. Structural collapse, electrical failures, life support problems, only." Hannah and June exchanged a quick glance. They both caught the lie in Veltar's words. The weapons were not set to training mode. They were walking into a death trap. "Teams will enter the maze at different points," Veltar said. "This prevents early confrontations and tests your navigation skills. You have 2 hours to complete the mission. Any questions?" No one spoke. The room was filled with tension that even the alien cadets seemed to feel. "Very well," Veltar said. "The transport bay." The journey to the lower decks took 10 minutes by transport lift. As they descended deeper into the station, the corridors became older and darker. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the metal walls. The air tasted stale and recycled. "This place gives me the creeps," June whispered to Hannah as they walked. "Stay focused," she whispered back. "Remember what we discussed. Watch the weapons. Watch the other teams. Trust no one except each other." They reached a large airlock that led into the maze. Through the thick glass, Hannah could see dark corridors stretching away into shadow. Old training equipment was scattered around like metal bones. "Human team," Veltar called. "You will enter from access point C. Follow the blue guide lights to your starting position." Hannah and June picked up their gear and walked toward their designated entrance. As they passed the other teams, Hannah felt hostile eyes watching them. Nix's crystal body flickered with what looked like excitement. The entrance corridor was narrow and cold. Their footsteps echoed off the metal walls as they followed the blue lights deeper into the maze. Behind them, the airlock sealed shut with a heavy clang. "No going back now," June said. They reached their starting position, a small room with 3 different exits. A computer terminal displayed their mission parameters and a countdown timer. 2 hours to find the victory beacon. "Which way?" June asked, looking at the 3 doorways. Hannah studied the rough map they had been given. "The central chamber should be that way," she said, pointing to the middle corridor. "But that seems too obvious." "They want us to get lost, or they want us to walk into an ambush," June added. They chose the left corridor, moving slowly and carefully. The maze was darker than expected. Their helmet lights cut through the shadows, revealing old training equipment and debris scattered on the floor. After 20 minutes of walking, they heard sounds echoing from somewhere ahead, footsteps and voices, speaking in the clicking language. "Of the Vorthen Nix's team," Hannah whispered. "They are close." They moved more carefully, using hand signals to communicate. The corridor ahead opened into a larger room with multiple exits. Through one doorway, they could see the crystal glow of Vorthon bodies moving around. Hannah held up her hand, signaling June to stop. Something was wrong. The Vorthon team was not moving through the maze. They were waiting in one spot, like they were setting up a camp. She crept closer to the doorway and peered around the corner. What she saw made her blood freeze. Nyx and Rax were standing near the center of the room, but they were not alone. 3 other alien cadets were with them, a Sored, a Kaleri, and another Vorthon. All of them were holding weapons. This was not part of the assessment. Teams were supposed to work independently. Having extra cadets here meant only one thing. This was the trap she had overheard them planning. "We wait here," Nyx was saying. "The humans will come through one of these passages eventually. When they do, we finish this." "What about the other teams?" asked the Sored. "They know to stay." "Away from this area," Nyx replied. "The humans are the only ones who do not know what is really happening here." One of the aliens was working on something near the wall. Hannah could see electronic equipment and cables. "Kind of device." "The beacon signal is ready," the alien announced. "It will draw them straight to us." Hannah backed away from the doorway carefully. Her heart was pounding. They had walked into exactly the trap she had feared. But now she knew where the enemy was and how many there were. She returned to June and explained what she had seen in whispers. His face grew grim as she spoke. 5 against 2, he said quietly, "and their weapons are probably set to kill, while ours are not." "Maybe," Hannah said, "but we have something they do not expect." "What is that?" "They think we are weak and emotional. They think we will panic when we realize we are trapped." Checked her weapon one more time. "They have never seen what humans do when we get angry." They moved to a better position, finding a room that overlooked the ambush site. From here, they could see all the exits and plan their approach. June pointed to a maintenance shaft in the ceiling. "We can get above them? Good idea. But first, we need to test something." Hannah aimed her weapon at a piece of metal debris in the corner and fired. The energy bolt hit the metal and left a burning hole completely through it. This was not a training weapon. This was set to full lethal power. They modified our weapons. Too, June realized. They wanted to look like we killed each other in the assessment. "Then we use that against them," Hannah said. "Come on." They climbed up into the maintenance shaft and crawled through the narrow space above the ambush room. Through gaps in the ceiling panels, they could see the 5 alien cadets below. They were positioned to cover all the main entrances to the room, but they were not watching the ceiling. Hannah and June positioned themselves directly above the center of the room. From here, they could drop down behind the enemy formation. "Remember," Hannah whispered, fast and hard. "Do not give them time to react." "I remember," June replied. "But Hannah, if something goes wrong, we are humans. We do not give up. We do not leave each other behind." Below them, Nyx was speaking into a communication device. "Human team should be here soon. All teams report your positions." Other voices crackled through the device, confirming that the other assessment teams were staying away from this area. The trap was complete, except for one thing the aliens had not considered. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not follow the logical, predictable patterns that alien military doctrine expected. They became something else entirely, something dangerous. Hannah looked at June one last time, her best friend, her partner, the person she trusted more than anyone else in the galaxy. "Ready?" she whispered. "Ready?" he whispered back. They dropped through the ceiling panels like falling meteors. Landing in the center of the surprised alien formation, the ambush had become a counter-ambush, but the aliens recovered quickly from their surprise. 5. Weapons turned toward the 2 humans, and that was when everything went wrong. Time moved slowly as Hannah and June hit the floor in the center of the room. 5 alien weapons turned toward them like the heads of hunting snakes. The surprise lasted only a moment before training took over. "Killed them both," Nyx shouted, his crystal body flashing with angry light. But June was already moving. Energy bolts sizzled through the air where they had been standing. "We are trapped," June said, breathing hard. The aliens were spreading out, trying to surround them. In a few seconds, they would have clear shots from multiple angles. "I have an idea," she said. "When I say go, run for that doorway. I will cover you." "What about you?" June asked. "I will be right behind you." But they both knew she was lying, and Hannah had already decided it would be her. "No," June said firmly. "We go together or not at all. June, be reasonable. One of us needs to survive to tell what happened here. Then we both survive, he said. That is what humans do. We do not abandon each other. The metal was beginning to melt under the sustained fire. They had maybe 10 seconds before it failed completely. Humans, Nyx called out, you are surrounded. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. How generous, Hannah muttered. She checked her weapon charge. Full power, enough for maybe 20 shots. I have a better idea, June said suddenly. Look at the ceiling above them. Hannah looked up. There was a large ventilation grate directly over the alien formation. It looked old and poorly maintained. If we can bring that down, ... double quotes, she started. Exactly. But we need to hit it at the same time from different angles. They positioned themselves at opposite ends of their cover. On Hannah's signal, they would both fire at the grate supports. If they were lucky, it would fall and scatter the aliens long enough for them to escape. Ready? Hannah whispered. Ready now? They leaned out from cover and fired together. Their energy bolts hit the grate supports at the same moment. Metal screamed and sparked as the bolts tore through the mounting brackets. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the massive grate broke free and crashed down into the center of the alien formation. Chaos erupted. Aliens scattered in all directions, trying to avoid the falling debris. Dust and sparks filled the air. Shouting voices echoed. In multiple languages, behind them, aliens were getting back to their feet and raising their weapons. Energy bolts began flying again, but most went wide in the confusion. They made it to the corridor and kept running. The maze stretched ahead of them, dark and full of shadows. Behind them, angry voices were organizing a pursuit. This way, June said, pointing to a side passage. They ran through the twisting corridors, taking turns at random. The aliens were following, but the maze was working in the humans' favor now. It was hard to track someone through so many passages after 10 minutes of running. They stopped to catch their breath in a small room filled with old equipment. Hannah checked her weapon charge, still nearly full. The brief firefight had used very little power. We cannot keep running forever, June said, listening to the sounds of pursuit echoing through the maze. They know this place better than we do. Then we stop running, Hannah said. We find the real victory beacon and complete the mission. If we can get to it first and activate it, this whole assessment is over. Assuming the beacon is real and not another trap, only one way to find out. They studied the maze map again. The central chamber was marked clearly, but there were multiple routes to reach it. Some looked shorter, but went through areas marked as dangerous. They started moving again, this time more carefully. Some corridors were filled with debris that they had to climb over. This place is falling apart, Hannah said, as they squeezed through a partially collapsed doorway. Perfect for hiding, June replied. They heard voices above them. The aliens had split up and were searching different levels, but the sounds were getting fainter. Wait, June said suddenly. Do you hear that? Hannah listened. Electronic equipment running on power. The beacon, she said. The corridor ahead opened into a large circular chamber. In the center was a raised platform with a glowing device on top. The victory beacon. But as they approached the chamber entrance, Hannah felt something was wrong. The beacon was supposed to be inactive until someone reached it. Why was it already glowing? It is another trap, she realized, too late. Nyx stepped out from behind a pillar near the chamber entrance. His crystal body was cracked and dusty from the earlier encounter, but his weapon was steady. Clever humans, he said. You found the central chamber, but you will not leave it alive. More aliens emerged from hiding places around the chamber. We knew you would eventually come for the beacon. Humans are so predictable. Actually, Hannah said, humans are full of surprises. She looked at June and nodded slightly. The beacon platform was raised above the chamber floor. If they could reach it, the height advantage might help, but they would have to cross open ground under fire. When I move, you go left, Hannah whispered. What about you? I go right. Meet you at the platform. Before June could argue, Hannah broke cover and ran toward the chamber center. The aliens immediately opened fire. Energy bolts lit up the air like deadly lightning. June ran the opposite direction. Drawing fire away from Hannah, both humans zigzagged through the chamber, using broken equipment for cover. But there were too many enemies and not enough cover. An energy bolt caught June in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled, but kept running. Another bolt grazed Hannah's leg. She felt burning pain, but did not slow down. They were almost to the platform when everything went wrong. Nyx had moved to cut off their escape route. "Enough games," Nyx said. "Time to end this." She saw June's face as he realized he could not dodge in time without thinking, without hesitation, without any consideration for her own safety. Hannah threw herself forward. She reached June just as the energy bolt arrived, but she was not fast enough to push him out of the way. Instead, June pushed her. The bolt, meant for June's chest, hit him full in the back as he shoved Hannah to safety. The full power energy discharge tore through his body like fire. He collapsed to the chamber floor, blood spreading beneath him. "June!" Hannah screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. He looked up at her with eyes that were already fading. "Human bonds?" he whispered. They never understood. They thought the fight was over. They had never been more wrong about anything in their lives. Something changed in Hannah Kim in that moment. Something deep and primal that civilization had tried to bury. The part of humanity that had survived ice, ages and predators and countless wars. The part that did not forget. The part that did not show mercy to those who hurt the pack. She stood up slowly, June's blood soaking into her uniform. The aliens stopped laughing as they saw her face. 23 seconds, she said quietly. Nyx asked, confused. The countdown began 20-3, 20-2, 20-1, and Hannah Kim showed the galaxy what happened when you made the mistake of killing a human in front of another human who loved them. 20 seconds. Hannah moved like liquid death across the chamber floor. The first alien, a saurid named Gorth, never saw her coming. She hit him with the butt of her weapon, crushing his skull with a sickening crack. He dropped without a sound. 15 seconds. The Kalari tried to float away, using his natural ability to escape. But Hannah grabbed one of his tentacles and used his own momentum to slam him into the chamber wall. The impact shattered his breathing apparatus. He fell to the floor, gasping and choking. 10 seconds. 2 more aliens tried to surround her. Hannah ducked under their energy blasts and rolled between them. She came up with a piece of sharp metal debris in each hand. Both aliens screamed as the makeshift weapons found their marks. 5 seconds. Only Nyx remained. The Vorthan leader had backed against the beacon platform, his crystal body flickering with terror. He raised his weapon with shaking hands. "Stick back!" he shouted. "I will kill you too!" She squeezed. The crystal began to crack under the pressure. Nyx screamed as fractures spread through his head structure. He dropped his weapon and clawed at her hands, but her grip was unbreakable. "Please," he begged. "I surrender. The Academy rules say you must accept surrender." Hannah looked down at him with cold, empty eyes. "I am not following Academy rules anymore." She squeezed harder, center of the chamber, holding the crystal head fragments in her bloody hands. Around her, 5 alien bodies lay motionless. The chamber was silent except for the humming of the victory beacon. She walked slowly toward the beacon platform, stepping over the bodies without looking down. Cut into her palms, but she felt no pain. The beacon was real. It had been working all along, just waiting for someone to activate it. Hannah placed her hand on the control surface. "Assessment complete," the beacon announced in a mechanical voice. "Human team victorious. Security teams would be coming soon." Hannah looked back at June's body one last time. Her best friend, her partner. Even as she said it, she knew June would not want her to blame herself. He had made his choice. He had died protecting her, just as she would have died protecting him. That was what humans did for each other. That was what the aliens would never understand. She heard footsteps echoing through the maze corridors. Multiple sets, moving fast. They would be here in minutes. Hannah picked up Nyx's crystal head fragments and walked toward the chamber entrance. She had no intention of running or hiding. She had completed the mission. They were led by Captain Min Ko, a human officer who served as the station's security chief. He stopped in the doorway and stared at the scene inside. 5 dead alien cadets, 1 dead human cadet, and Hannah Kim standing in the center of it all, covered in blood and holding pieces of crystal in her hands. "Cadet Kim," Captain Ko said carefully. Hannah looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than her 22 years. "The assessment is complete. Captain, the human team won. Now please, put down whatever you are holding and come with us. Hannah opened her hands. The crystal fragments of Nix's head fell to the floor with tiny ringing sounds. I am ready to go, Captain. As the security team led her away, more officers entered the chamber to examine the scene. What they found would be talked about for years to come. The aliens had been killed with brutal efficiency. Each death had been quick and precise, designed to eliminate a threat as rapidly as possible. It was not the work of a raging animal. Later, the big Sored looked at the bodies of his dead cadets and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not fear of Hannah Kim specifically. Fear of what she represented. Fear of what humans might be capable of when pushed too far. He had spent months trying to prove that humans were too emotional and unpredictable for military service. Now he had succeeded beyond his worst nightmares. Sir, one of the security officers reported, we found evidence of weapon modifications throughout the maze. The training weapons were set to full lethal power. Impossible, Veltar said. Who authorized those modifications? No one, sir. Veltar felt his stomach turn cold. Ambush? Yes, sir. This was not a normal assessment. The alien cadets were working together to kill the human team. It was premeditated murder. She could still feel the weight of Nix's head in her hands. Captain Ko entered the cell and sat down across from her. The investigation is ongoing, he said. But the preliminary evidence suggests you were defending yourself. Force against attackers who were trying to kill you. The law does not matter here, Captain. What matters is that they killed June, and I made them pay for it. Ko studied her face. She showed no remorse, no regret for what she had done, but she also showed no pleasure in it. She had simply done what needed to be done. The alien species representatives are demanding your immediate execution, he said. I think you are a soldier who watched her partner die and responded the way any good soldier would. The problem is, the aliens do not understand that concept. They understand it now, Hannah said quietly. Word of the incident spread through the station like wildfire. One human had survived and killed all 5 attackers in 23 seconds. The alien cadets looked at the remaining humans with new eyes. Fear replaced contempt. Respect replaced mockery. They began to understand that the emotional bonds they had mocked were not weakness. They were the source of emergency messages were being sent to the governments of every species in the Galactic Alliance. The incident would require investigation at the highest, and violence. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous. They had created a human who had nothing left to lose. The trial of Hannah Kim became the most watched legal proceeding in galactic history. Representatives from every member species of the Galactic Alliance gathered on the neutral world of Harmony Station to determine her fate. The prosecution was led by Ambassador Thexar, a senior Vorthan diplomat whose crystal body gleamed with righteous anger. This human committed an act of unprecedented savagery, he declared to the assembled court. She murdered 5 young cadets in cold blood. This proves that humans are too violent and unstable for civilized society. The defense was handled by Admiral Min Ko, who had been promoted and transferred from Station Kepler 7 specifically for this case. My client acted in self-defense against a premeditated murder plot, he countered. The evidence will show that. Cadet Kim was the victim, not the aggressor. Hannah sat quietly at the defendant's table, wearing a simple gray uniform. She had refused all offers of legal counsel except Admiral Ko. Her face showed no emotion as the charges were read. Murder. In the first degree, 5 counts, each carrying a death sentence under galactic law. How does the defendant plead? Asked Judge Morden, an ancient being whose species had helped write the original galactic legal code. Hannah stood up slowly. I plead not guilty to murder, Your Honor, but I am guilty of something else. Explain, the judge said. I am guilty of being human. Murmurs filled the courtroom. The alien observers did not understand what she meant, but the human delegations smiled grimly. The prosecution presented their case first. They showed images of the chamber where the 5 alien cadets had died. They described the brutality of the killings in graphic detail. They argued that no civilized being could have committed such acts. Look at these images, Ambassador Thek said, displaying pictures of the scene. This was not self-defense. This was slaughter. The defendant killed 5 beings in 23 seconds using nothing but her bare hands and improvised weapons. The defendant also carried the severed head of Cadet Nix from the scene. The prosecutor continued. This shows a level of barbarism that has no place in modern society. But when Admiral Cog began the defense, the story changed completely. The prosecution wants you to focus on how the alien cadets died, he said, but they do not want you to ask why they died. He activated a holographic display showing the weapon modifications found in the maze. These training weapons were illegally altered to lethal settings. The alien cadets planned to murder the human team and make it look like an accident. The evidence was overwhelming. Security recordings showed the alien cadets meeting in secret. Communication intercepts revealed their plan to eliminate human cadets from the academy. Technical analysis proved the weapons had been deliberately modified. This was not a training exercise, Admiral KO declared. This was an execution, but the most damaging evidence came from the Academy's own records. Years of discrimination, sabotage, and harassment directed at human cadets. Equipment failures that were too frequent to be accidental. Food poisoning that only affected humans. Training schedules deliberately changed to disadvantage human teams. The alien cadets did not wake up one day and decide to commit murder, Admiral KO explained. This was the culmination of a systematic campaign to force humans out of the galactic. Military Commander Veltar was called to testify. The big Sarad looked uncomfortable as he took the witness stand. Did you know about the weapon modifications? Admiral KO asked. No, Veltar replied. I was told they were standard training weapons. Did you know about the plan to ambush the human team? No, yet you assigned the assessment to the lower decks, an area with no security cameras and no witnesses. You separated the human team from the others. You gave them a starting position that led directly into the ambush zone. Veltar's scales darkened with embarrassment. The assignment was made according to standard protocols that someone else could have influenced. It is possible Admiral Ko activated another display. Security analysis shows that your personal computer was accessed multiple times by unauthorized users in the weeks before the assessment. Someone was using your access codes to modify the test parameters. The evidence was clear. The alien cadets had manipulated the assessment. From the beginning, they had used Commander Veltar A's own prejudices against him, knowing he would cooperate with any plan that might eliminate human cadets. But the prosecution was not finished. They called character witnesses who testified about Hannah's aggressive behavior during training. They brought in experts who claimed that humans were genetically predisposed to violence. The defendant's actions prove what we have long suspected, Ambassador Thexar argued. Humans are dangerous primitives who have no place in civilized society. They form irrational emotional attachments that make them unpredictable and violent. It was then that Admiral KO made his most important move. He called Hannah to testify in her own defense. She walked to the witness stand with steady steps. The courtroom fell silent as she raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. Cadet Kim, Admiral KO began, please tell the court what happened in the final 23 seconds of the encounter. Hannah looked out at the assembled aliens. Her voice was calm and clear. June Park was my best friend. We had trained together for months. We trusted each other completely. Humans have evolved over millions of years, Hannah explained. We survived ice ages, predators, wars, famines, diseases. We survived because we protected each other. We formed bonds stronger than steel. She paused, looking directly at the alien. Observers, you call these bonds weaknesses. You think emotion makes us unstable, but you are wrong. These bonds are our greatest strength. How so? When you threaten one human, you threaten all of us. When you kill one human in front of another, you do not break our spirit. You unleash something that has been sleeping inside us for thousands of years. The courtroom was completely silent now. Even the translators had stopped their mechanical humming. I did not kill those cadets because I was angry, Hannah continued. I killed them because they had declared war on my species. They had to be stopped before they could hurt any more humans. Do you regret your actions? Hannah thought for a moment. I regret that June died. I regret that the alien cadets chose violence instead of honor. But I do not regret protecting my people. Ambassador Thexar stood up for cross-examination. You killed 5 beings in 23 seconds. How do you justify such brutality? I do not justify it, Hannah replied. I explain it. Those cadets made a choice to commit murder. I made a choice to stop them. The brutality was not in how I killed them. The brutality was in why they had to die. You could have captured them instead of killing them, could I? They were armed with lethal weapons. They had already murdered my partner. They were planning to kill me, too. Hannah's voice grew harder. In that moment, I was not a cadet following Academy rules. I was a human protecting her tribe. The trial continued for 3 more days. Expert witnesses testified about human psychology, evolutionary biology, and military tactics. The evidence painted a clear picture of a species that had been pushed to its breaking point. On the final day, Judge Morden delivered the verdict. This court finds the defendant not guilty of murder, he announced. The evidence clearly shows that Cadet Kim acted in self-defense against a premeditated attack. The alien observers erupted in protests, but the judge continued. However, this case raises larger questions about the place of humans in galactic society. He looked directly at Hannah. Cadet Kim, your actions were legally justified, but they were also terrifying. In 23 seconds, you killed 5 trained soldiers using only your bare hands. This demonstrates capabilities that many species find disturbing. I understand, Your Honor. The question before this court is not whether you should be punished for your actions. The question is whether humanity as a whole can be trusted with the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Judge Morden paused, looking around the courtroom. After reviewing all the evidence, this court concludes that humanity's emotional bonds are not a weakness to be eliminated. They are a strength to be respected. Furthermore, the systematic discrimination against human cadets at the Galactic Military Academy constitutes a violation of the Alliance Charter. Reforms will be implemented immediately to ensure equal treatment for all species. He turned to the alien observers. Let this serve as a warning to all member species. Humans may seem gentle and emotional compared to your own people, but they are also capable of extraordinary loyalty and extraordinary violence when their bonds are threatened. Approach humanity with respect, and you will find no better allies in the galaxy. Threaten them, or their loved ones, and you will discover why they survived on a world that tried to kill them for millions of years. The gavel came down with a final bang. Hannah Kim was free, but more importantly, humanity had earned something it had never possessed before. The respect of the galaxy. 6 months later, Hannah graduated from the Galactic Military Academy with full honors. She was assigned to the Elite Human Defense Corps, a new military unit created specifically for human soldiers. The Academy had changed to anti-discrimination policies were strictly enforced. Mixed species training was mandatory, and every cadet, regardless of species, learned about the importance of emotional bonds in military service. Commander Velt had been demoted and transferred to a desk job on a remote mining station. He spent his days filing reports and thinking about the humans he had underestimated, but the biggest change was in how alien species viewed humanity. The old stereotypes of weakness and instability were replaced by new understanding. Humans were not primitive savages. They were not emotional weaklings. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that would go to war for love. On the day of her graduation, Hannah stood at attention as Admiral Ko pinned the officers' insignia to her uniform. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every species in the Alliance. Any regrets? Admiral Ko asked quietly. Hannah looked out at the assembled crowd. Alien faces that had once shown contempt now showed wariness and respect. They had learned their lesson well. Just one, she said. I wish June could have seen this. He did see it, Admiral Ko replied. He saw it in the choice he made to save you. He saw it in the 23 seconds that changed everything. As Hannah walked across the stage to receive her diploma, a new message was being transmitted to every military academy in the galaxy. It would be included in the permanent curriculum for all future officers. When evaluating human military personnel, remember the incident at Station Kepler 7. Humans form emotional bonds that transcend individual survival. These bonds make them fierce protectors of their allies and relentless enemies to those who threaten their people. Approach with caution when their pack loyalty is engaged. The message was signed by every member of the Galactic Alliance Council, and at the bottom, in small letters, was a final warning that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. They shot the human cadet. 23 seconds later, she walked out, covered in his blood, holding his head. Remember this lesson well.